At the time of this recording, we are just a couple of hours away from the first game to be kicked off in the MLSisback tournament between Inter Miami versus Orlando City. But before I, of course, watch that game, I am going to do a quick episode of News of the Week because today is Wednesday and I usually do News of the Week episode on a Wednesday. So the league yesterday announced a couple of games to be changed in terms of the schedule. And the first game that they announced that is going to be changed in terms of the schedule is the match between the Chicago Fire versus Nashville, as that match is now going to be postponed to a later date. Although I have a feeling that match probably will not be postponed to a later date, and that this match probably won't even happen in the MLSisback tournament because we know one of these two teams potentially is going to fill that spot that FC Dallas previously occupied in Group B. But obviously now with them withdrawing from this tournament, somebody's going to have to fill that spot. And that Chicago and Nashville most likely are going to be one of the two teams that's going to fill that spot. Now, I'm pretty sure that most likely Chicago might be the one that filled that spot. Because as I'm going to mention a little bit later, Nashville is having this big uncertainty right now of whether or not if they're actually going to continue this tournament. Because they have multiple players that has been tested positive for this COVID-19 disease. But as of now, they said that the match is going to be postponed to a later date. But again, I just doubt that this match is going to be played at all with the way that one of these two teams is going to potentially move into Group B. Now, speaking of Group B, the only Group B match as of now is going to be also have a bit of a schedule change, as that match originally was going to kick off at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Now it's going to be moved up to 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific time. And, I have no problem with that, since I am at home pretty much throughout this pandemic. And as long as if a Quakes game is not kicking off at 9 a.m. Eastern time and 6 a.m. Pacific time, I have to get up super early to watch a Quakes game. I have no problem whatsoever watching the Quakes play in this MLSisback tournament. Now, obviously, I know there's going to be a couple of Quakes fans that probably are now back to work after they have to deal with this pandemic, are going to have a little bit of an issue because now they're probably going to have to rush either to get to home or go into that drive-in event that the Quakes are doing, where fans, of course, can drive into Avaya Stadium, and they can, of course, watch the big screen above Labina, which, by the way, I am not going to go to that event. And as much as I want to go to the event, I think the reason why I decide not to do it is because I don't want to make a 70-mile round trip to there just to watch a viewing party there. And that, knowing the fact that during this pandemic, I try my best in terms of driving as less as possible, because I know wasting gas is definitely something that I shouldn't be doing, consider I'm on a very limited budget. That is one of the reasons why I'm not going to. Another reason is the fact that I still don't feel it's safe to go to that drive-in event. Yes, I know that people, of course, are just going to be sit in their car while watching the game. They're not going to have any physical contact with other fans. But still, even then, I don't feel safe about that either. And also, what happened if Labina does open or the concession stand does open at Avaya Stadium? Fans are going to have to either line up to get some of those food and some of those drinks from the outdoor bar, or they're going to deliver it to you. And if that is the case, then you're going to have exposure to other people too. So the bottom line is, I just feel it's a little bit unsafe, and I feel it's better to just watch it at home, because at least when you're watching at home, you don't have to deal with long lines in terms of the concession stand. I can literally just go and get a snack from my snack drawer, or just go to the fridge to get a beer or a drink there, instead of just have to line up in a long line and also paying some overpriced food and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not going to be going to the drive-in event, and I'm not actually going to go to any of the driving event whatsoever. And I believe the drive-in event that the Quakes are doing, at least for the first game, I heard it's already sold out, and that it actually sold out quicker than I thought, knowing the fact that I thought people might actually not buy into this idea at first, but that doesn't seem like it is going to be the case. But going back to this, as I said, the Sounders versus Quakes match is going to be moved up to 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And then the last game that's going to be changed in terms of schedule is the DC United versus Toronto FC match, which will now be moved to a 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific time. And with that schedule change, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be watching this game. Like, I was really hoping, we might not have as much as these breakfast game as we will get, because I know for a fact I'm not going to wake up 6 in the morning to watch an MLS game. But fortunately, now there's going to be another one into it. And I guess what I'm going to do with these morning game is that I'll probably just watch the condensed version. Or if there is any case where they might show like a replay or the full game replay on ESPN Plus, then I'll of course just watch the full the full game replay on ESPN Plus and just kind of almost do like an on-demand kind of stuff when I of course cannot watch this game bright and early in the morning. Now, there is no news regarding Nashville withdrawal from the tournament despite 5 players tested positive, and this is why I mentioned earlier that Nashville could be in a little bit of a difficult situation, because they have almost around the same amount of players that has been tested positive for COVID-19 as FC Dallas had a couple of days ago, and Dallas eventually was forced to withdraw from this tournament. And again, yes, like what I said yesterday, I feel like even if Nashville does withdraw from this tournament, it is kind of a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because now we'll be down to 24 teams in this tournament, and everything will be even out now. Now every single group will have 4 teams apiece in a group of 6, but obviously, even though with that silver lining in place, we hope that Nashville won't have to face a situation that Dallas will eventually have to do, which is withdraw from this tournament. Although right now, looking at the situation that they're in right now, it is kind of likely the fact that in these upcoming days, they're going to probably have to force to announce that they're not going to be participating in this tournament. There's also no news of who, of course, will replace FC Dallas' spot in Group B, but as I said, I think it's going to be either Chicago or Nashville, or in this case, I think Chicago might be the one that will replace FC Dallas in that spot, knowing the fact that if Nashville does withdraw, they're probably the prime target to be replacing FC Dallas in that spot. And that, I'm assuming they're going to have to announce it in these upcoming days, because, with how Group B is right now, I'm pretty sure the league is not going to have a situation where there's going to be only 3 teams in Group B, and that each of those teams in Group B can only play twice in the group stage. Like, that would just completely throw off how the group stage is going to work, and that eventually I think the league is going to work a way to try to put a team to replace FC Dallas in that spot, and Vancouver will eventually find out who are they going to be playing in their first match in the MLSisback tournament. Now, players have had some mixed experience about this MLSisback tournament. As I've been hearing there has been a couple of players that have said that they are happy with this tournament, and that there are a couple of people said that they're not happy with this tournament, and they said that they think this tournament is not a good idea. One of those players is Bradley Wright Phillips, who I think he said when he was interviewed on ESPN FC, saying that he don't think this is a great idea, and that this is, of course, is a huge risk of all these players that is playing in this tournament. And then I heard guys like Frederick Briand, who was in the Julien Gresso podcast, saying that he thinks that all these news talk about how it is unsafe to play in this tournament, and all the condition that the players have to deal with in the bubble are completely false, and that he feel like he's even safer being in the bubble than he is without going into the bubble. But whatever the reaction is from players around this tournament, the bottom line is we're still going to play this tournament. And as much as I know a lot of people are still saying on social media to cancel this tournament, it's not gonna happen. Like, unless if things get really bad, and that there might be an evidence that the bubble that these players are in is not a great idea, and that there might be a outbreak going on inside the bubble, the tournament is not going to be canceled. It's just going to continue to play, and maybe even get into the end if that is going to be the case. Now, I will also want to mention some of the players that is going to be missing in this tournament, because there is definitely a lot of notable player missing in this tournament. And it's also kind of one of the reasons why, before I was very excited about this tournament and I want to take this tournament a little bit serious and want my team to do their best in terms of this tournament. But now it just kind of make me feel like this tournament is like a preseason tournament. And it doesn't help the fact that they're going to be playing in a soccer complex and that there's going to be no fans attending. And that the way that this tournament is structured, it kind of reminds me of those preseason tournament, and that whoever, of course, win the preseason tournament, they'll be happy they won a trophy, but it's really just kind of for some pride that they, of course, are going to get. And I have a feeling whoever wins this tournament, I know people are going to, some of the fans from that team, or all their fans from the team that won this tournament, it's going to be happy and they're going to celebrate with this tournament. But a lot of people are going to say, yeah, they won the tournament, but they play in a tournament where there's a lot of players that was missing, and there was a lot of uncertainty, and some of these players have also been taken out because of this virus. And it just gets to a point where they basically, the reason why they won this tournament isn't because they had the best team, but it's mainly because all these players unfortunately have suffered this virus, and they were kind of like the last team standings in terms of the team that can stay the healthiest in this situation. So there's going to be a big asterisk of whoever win this tournament, and that this is also the reason why I just feel like this has kind of started becoming like a preseason tournament, even though I know there are still some things at stake at this, with the way that there's a trophy, there's a CCL spot, and I'm not quite sure by the time in these upcoming days that this is going to be true. The points total is going to count toward the regular season. And the reason why I say that is because I think with just so many players that is out, and we already have one team that got pulled out of this tournament, and potentially another team going to do it in these upcoming days, I just don't see it as a point where they should just count it toward the regular season. This should just be like a fun kind of preseason tournament level, just to get fans excited, instead of teams have to worry about how if they don't get enough points in this, it could come back to haunt them if there is going to be a playoffs heading into the latter part of this season. But going back to this, notable player that's going to be missing in this tournament include Joseph Martinez, Paul Arriola, Jorgen Lacadia, who a couple of days ago, FC Cincinnati announced that he's going to be out for a couple of weeks because of a thigh injury. So there's another guy that I basically said I was looking forward to seeing how to play, and he was one of the players to be watch out in that video where I did like 10 players to watch out in this tournament, and there's already one player that is not going to be playing. And my kind of worry and concern about some of the players I picked from that video is not going to play in this tournament because of injuries, or if they get this virus, have already started to come to reality. Jonathan Dos Santos, obviously he's not going to be available because he's undergoing that hernia surgery. Robbie Robinson, who just a couple of days ago says that he decided to opt out for this tournament because he was worried about the risk that players are going to get this virus, so he's not going to be playing in this tournament. Same goes for Carlos Vela. He also decided to opt out, and he wanted to be with his family rather than just putting himself at risk playing in a tournament that potentially could get him the virus. Iko Para, he had some injuries leading up to this tournament, might not be available for this tournament, but could be back after this tournament is over. Felipe Gutierrez, probably out for the season because of the torn ACL. Nadim Onuha, another guy that decided to opt it out for this tournament because he's worried about the risk of getting the virus. The entire FC Dallas team and 5 Whitecaps players, including Lucas Cavallini. And in fact, I think of those 5 Whitecaps players, pretty much their entire forward line has been wiped out heading into this tournament because all those guys are saying no to participate in this tournament. And I have a feeling the Whitecaps are just punting the football here. Like they don't even care about this tournament whatsoever. And this is also another example why I think this is kind of like a preseason tournament, because not a lot of these teams are really feeling their strongest team, and that they're trying to kind of experiment with some of these younger guys. And at the end of the day, if that's the case, you might as well just call this a preseason tournament rather than a tournament that actually count toward the regular season. But now moving away in terms of talking about the MLS is back tournament and talk about some signings that has happened in these last couple of days, because the two teams that is going to be coming into the league very soon, Austin FC and Charlotte, has signed their first player, as Austin FC have signed Paraguayan forward Rodney Redes for $2.75 million, and Charlotte, of course, signed Spanish midfielder Sergio Ruiz as their first signing, although there is an unknown kind of fee that they, of course, sign him. And these two players are very different players, even though obviously they're two different players because one of them is forward and one of them is midfield. But it's more to do with the age of the fact that when Austin FC decided to sign this Paraguayan forward, this is just an example of them trying to copy the trend that is right now with MLS, of how teams are trying to get these young South American talent players to come to MLS, develop them, and eventually sell them off of profit. And right now, Austin FC are doing exactly that. They see Rodney Redes as a player that could be a hidden gem as a young South American talent player, and hopefully they'll develop him in a way that they can sell him off of a profit. Now, Charlotte, with them getting Sergio Ruiz, he's definitely not a young guy whatsoever. In fact, I think he's now 31 years old, and that I have a feeling this might not be a DP signing. It might be just a TAM signing, or even just an entry-level signings, with the way that when they got him from a second division team in Spain, I have a feeling that might be a sign where they're probably just getting him just to kind of get things started a little bit, and that there's going to be some big signings coming up with Charlotte. Like right now, Charlotte is still in a situation where they're still in an early stage of getting ready for MLS. Like they already announced a couple of weeks back that they're not going to announce their team name until a couple of weeks back due to the pandemic that we are in right now. Now, another news that I forgot to put here on the board, but I also want to mention, is that Austin FC have also rumored to sign Vincent Janssen from Rayados, and they said that he is going to, they're looking to try to sign him from Rayados for about 16 to 18 million dollar, or actually I think it was 18 to 20 million dollar. And if that is the case, I think that's gonna break the transfer record in MLS. I believe that's a little bit higher than what Atlanta paid for Pity Martinez. But yeah, that is a lot of money to try to get a guy that, I can't believe he's actually in Liga MX, because I know a couple of years ago he was playing with Tottenham and he was doing a very decent job, and then for some reason now he has ended up in Liga MX, and that I've also heard that he hasn't been a regular starter for Rayados. So if you're gonna sign a guy that costs that much money and he's not a regular starter, that is definitely a very bold move, and that I question, is he really worth that much of amount if he's not a regular starter for the team? And yes, I understand Liga MX's team are when they decide to sell players to MLS, they always make sure that they want to hike up the fees and just kind of force MLS team to overpay players, so that they don't want to sell some of their players to MLS, and that the only way that they, of course, decide to sell them to MLS is that they want to hike up the prices. But even then, that is definitely a very expensive signing for a guy that, as I said, he isn't really a regular starter for Rayados, but she'll see whether or not if Austin FC is going to do that. Now, NYCFC says that their stadium search is slowed down because of the COVID-19 pandemic, although I have a feeling this is just a pure excuse for them saying that, we said before that we were looking for a stadium and we were making progress. No, we weren't making progress whatsoever, and now we're gonna just use this as an excuse, saying that we actually didn't make any progress whatsoever of finding their stadium. But either way, I at this point, when NYCFC mentioned the fact that they're looking for a stadium and they have a proposal, I am not going to believe it until they actually decide to put shovel on the ground, because we here have heard the stories for so many years that NYCFC eventually was going to find a stadium, and in a couple of months after they said that they're going to build it at that site, the plan never worked out, and we just basically end up in this cycle of of them still having some difficult issue in terms of searching for this stadium, and that it's almost like we have made absolutely no progress ever since they came into the league in 2015, and that the only reason why, as I said, they're saying that their stadium search has slowed down because of COVID-19 is because it's just an excuse of them saying that we haven't actually found a place where we can potentially put our new stadium to be built. Now, finally, in terms of the news of the week, and kind of shifting a little bit unrelated to MLS, but kind of related to the upcoming World Cup not the upcoming World Cup, but the World Cup that's going to be happening in 2026, which is going to be happening here in the US, Canada, and Mexico. Chicago will not be one of those cities, as they announced that they will not be hosting any World Cup game in 2026, and Soldier Field, who was going to be the stadium that was going to be hosting the World Cup games in Chicago, is not going to be one of those venues. Now, as much as I'm kind of surprised the fact that FIFA decided to pass up on Chicago, knowing the fact that this is the third biggest city in the US, and it would be kind of surprising why did they decided to not go to a city that is this big and have a rich kind of soccer tradition. I can also see why Chicago is not hosting games, and that I have a feeling, there's actually a couple of reasons. One, the reason I think Chicago might not be hosting is because there's a lot of competition in terms of who actually is going to be hosting this World Cup. We only are going to get 10 US cities that is going to be hosting the World Cup, which means that there are going to be some notable city that eventually is going to miss out for it of hosting a World Cup games, and that those spots are very hotly contested. And the second reason, and I think that this is probably the biggest reason, is I have the feeling people don't want to host the World Cup here. And you might think, why do people don't want their city to host the World Cup? Aren't those people that are huge soccer fans and want the World Cup to come to their city? Well, some of them might be the case, but I feel like there are some people that might not really kind of get into the World Cup. I mean, I understand the World Cup is the biggest event in sports, but keep in mind, there are some people that are not really into it and only kind of watch it as a casual fan. And if you have a World Cup, like if you're just a normal commuter and you have a World Cup in your city, talk about how much of a headache that is going to be in terms of your everyday commute. Like, you're going to have hundreds of thousands of fans that is going to be coming to your city party and stuff like that. That only not is going to add in terms of the time to commute during rush hour. But if you are a regular commuter, or let's say in this example, if you're a commuter that commute on the L train in Chicago, you're going to have to deal with a ton of these rowdy fans, or you're going to be packed into those L train like sardines, because there are so many of these fans are taking the public transportation. And I can tell you from the Copa America Centenario, I remember when I actually took Caltrain to go down to Santa Clara to watch the opening game between the US and Colombia. Let me just tell you that taking the train down to Mountain View and then taking the VTA going to Levi Stadium was one of the worst experience I ever had to endure, going to a stadium taking public transit. Like, the train was just packed with so many fans that I can barely breathe on the train whatsoever. And then when we get onto the light rail, there was basically just standing room only by the time I get to the stadium. And then going back home, I actually didn't had to do that, and then had to have to pack into that light rail vehicle like sardines, because of the fact that I actually decided to not take the light rail until an hour and a half after the game. But I bet even after the game, since there's going to be so many fans taking the light rail and that so many fans are leaving the stadium, it's going to create a lot of headache in terms of that. So it's not a big surprise why some of these cities don't want to host the World Cup, because the people don't want to have to deal with that kind of nightmare too. So yeah, these are kind of the two biggest reasons why the World Cup is probably not going to be hosting in the city. And it'll be interesting to see in these upcoming years who exactly is going to be hosting the World Cup here. Like, I don't mind the fact that the World Cup is hosting here in the Bay Area, but if it's not going to be in the Bay Area, I'm not going to cry it over and not going to be utterly disappointed that is not going to be the case. Because if it does host here in the Bay Area, like, traffic right now here in the Bay Area is just one of the worst experience that I have to deal with in terms of driving. If you now add in fans coming here to go to World Cup games and attend World Cup festivities, the traffic not only is going to be 10 times worse, but even if I don't drive down the 101 and take Caltrain there, every single day I'm just going to be packed like sardines, and I'm going to have something similar experience to what happened when I attended that Copa America Centenario a couple of years back. And I do not want to have that experience ever again. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the news of the week. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of all these news. And as usual, if I didn't mention some news that you want me to mention and wasn't included on the board, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.